SBC Media.
Welcome to iGaming Daily, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe. Supported by SBC Summit Latino America, bringing together the leadership teams and product specialists from retail and online operators in Latin American markets.
Discover the potential of Latin America's booming iGaming and sports betting markets at SBC Summit Latin America, the premier industry event in the region. Join SBC at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Miami from October 31st to November the 2nd. Register now at sbcevents.com.
Brazil is often introduced as a sleeping giant, but many fail to see that it's actually already awake and almost fully working. While it is currently pending a set of rules, operators, suppliers, associations, and government officials have joined efforts to work around the regulations and take advantage of all the possibilities as soon as possible. Meanwhile, operators are shaping their marketing strategies to get market share even before the industry officially launches in Brazil. Today on iGaming Daily, sponsored by SBC Summit Latin America, I am joined by Lucía Mouriño, Isadora Marcante, and SBC's Vice President of Marketing Americas, Cristian Robalino, as we discuss some of these strategies and analyse what operators interested in a license can do to increase brand exposure in a soon-to-be-launched market without being too aggressive. Cristian, it's your debut, so welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, James.
I'm excited because we have some announcements.
There is a sneaky announcement to be made, and we will be doing that later on the podcast because, Cristian, you will be providing more information on the exciting news regarding the launch of SBC's brand new event, SBC Summit Rio, that was announced earlier this morning. But before we get onto that, which I honestly can't wait to hear more about, we've spoken about Brazil a few times on previous episodes of iGaming Daily, but since our last discussion, quite a few things have happened in the local industry, yet many steps have been taken towards an official launch. Isadora, can you just share some of your highlights from the last couple of weeks?
Oh, yes. Hi, guys. How are you? So we didn't see developments regarding the regulation process in Brazil, especially now that the CPI that is investigating the match fixing cases will be paused until 1st August due to the legislative recess here in Brazil. But a few things had happened here regarding the sports betting industry. So one good news is that Pay for Fun has now joined IBGR. So the Brazilian Payment Method Solution now is a member of the Brazilian Institute of Responsible Gambling, which is very nice. The Brazilian Women Basketball League joined the Brazilian Association of Sport Integrity Defense, known as ABRADE, which is great as well. And last but not least, our Vice President, Geraldo Alckmin, met the CEO of Playtech to discuss legalizing the iGaming industry in Brazil, which, if happens, it will be a great step towards economic growth in the country. About this, the deputy Felipe Carreiras, who is in charge of the CPI, said that Alckmin listened to the arguments and waved positively towards the regulation. So this will be a great step for us, especially that the bill that regulates gambling was approved by the Chamber of Deputies in Brazil, but has been waiting for the approval for the Federal Senate to go forward. So having this positive sign from Alckmin can be a great and very good sign for the future. So let's see what's going to happen. And actually, I think this is a great time to talk about marketing strategies for operators, because when the sports betting industry gets regulated and the iGaming industry gets legalized in Brazil, and it's nice to know beforehand what we can do in terms of marketing here, because it's a very specific market.
Perfect. And, advertising is just kind of one aspect of marketing. Lou, I'm going to come to you on this one. What trends that we've seen already in Brazil do you think operators will kind of keep taking advantage of once the market is fully regulated? And which ones do you think will kind of be left behind?
I think there's actually a bunch of things that operators have tried in the past few years, and as mentioned recently in some iGaming Daily episodes that you can stream on your favorite podcast platform. I think it's safe to say that football and sports sponsorships in general have played a major role in Brazil. The Brasileirão is by far the best league in Latin America, only followed by the Argentinian league, I would say, and it's not close right now. Like, obviously, there's a bunch of other teams throughout the region that have dominated at a local and continental level, but overall, their leagues are not as strong as those two. And looking into the Brazilian league in particular, you won't find many teams in the top two divisions without a sports betting sponsorship. I would even argue that the sportsbook presence is even more strong in Brazil than it is in the UK. And we all know that the UK is like a major market for these kinds of things. So even if they enforce the idea to only let licensed operators sponsor teams, I think this will be a strategy that they will definitely focus on after the government passes regulations. And I don't mean this in a negative way, but, and Isa, correct me if I'm wrong, but speaking in general, Brazil is a religious country. So I expect some resistance to traditional advertising, but definitely not a ban like in European countries. And one thing that I think will be definitely moderated at some point is bonuses. If they want to do things right, I think they will follow the examples of some US states like, I don't know, Ohio, and impose fines to operators that have zero limits when it comes to bonuses.
Speaking about marketing strategies, Cristian, you're our expert here. I've got a two-part question for you. How can operators apply the best strategies without being too aggressive? And also, what's the best approach around marketing when taking into account that the market is still not in full force and that operators don't know what works and what doesn't?
Absolutely. I think Lou said it best. You know, the strategies are mostly around football. And I think that's an important core audience that operators are definitely going after. But there are a lot of lessons that can be learned from Europe and even the US, Canada. But most importantly, responsible gambling and advertising must be at the core of their initiatives. It must be the number one thing that they focus on. And of course, having a product and an experience that is top notch is very important. The traditional advertising, the out-of-home advertising, and the sponsorships are a great avenue for brands to get their name out in the eyes of the people that are most importantly going to be participating in this and already are, as we know. But I think to answer the second part of the question, I think operators have to get ready for when the regulation does take full force. Preparing and not over-advertising, not being too aggressive is going to be very key because you don't want to get fined and have those things that even Lucía mentioned.
I have a question actually for Chris. Do you think that sponsoring like sports and sports events, not like major sports like football, but like football that it's really popular in Brazil, is one of the best strategies that operators can implement to put their brand out there without being like extremely aggressive, like when you see in football championships, for example?
Yeah. I think it boils down to a few things. And one is brand recognition. And I think that's what that does at a fundamental level. It's just getting the name out there with millions and millions of views, especially in the Brazilian market. So it's a softer kind of launch, but it's always going to be in your face. You know, the photos of the athletes, the photos of the sports, the background advertising. I think it's naturally there, and I think there isn't a team that isn't already sponsored. There's a thin line between being too aggressive, where everything feels like it's all about sports betting, and what would that entail for the individual when all these news are coming out about match fixing and those type of things. So, you want to be careful with that.
We're going to move on to the announcement about SBC Summit Rio. But just before we do, any of the topics that Isadora mentioned earlier on in the podcast, I'll leave a link in the description below so people can check out the articles on SBC Noticias/BR. I believe that's right. Or am I wrong there, Lou?
No, you were correct.
I am correct. Thank you very much. Let's get on to SBC Summit Rio. Cristian, I'm going to come to you. It was announced this morning. Exciting news. For those who haven't actually seen the details, can you just share some information about the event?
Yes, absolutely. Well, this morning we were thrilled to announce that we've added SBC Summit Rio to our event lineup. The summit will take place from the 5th to 7th of March, 2024, at the 5-star Windsor Barra Hotel. It's going to bring together senior executives, decision makers, and experts from the region to discuss important topics, including regulatory frameworks, localized product offerings, operator media relationships, sports integrity, data rights, sponsorship opportunities. I can go on and on as things kind of develop, but there's honestly going to be a lot to learn. And our expert conference team is currently finalizing the agenda, so we'll be sharing what that looks like in the upcoming weeks.
Perfect. And frequent listeners to this podcast will know how much we've covered Brazil in the last few months. But I need to ask the question because Brazil's massive, but why Brazil and why now?
Well, this is not SBC's first endeavor into the Brazilian market. Back in 2022, we made a significant impact in the region by hosting the Brazilian Sports Betting Summit, which was in partnership with the Brazilian Football Confederation. It was a small B2B conference that took place during the Brazilian Football Expo, which was a consumer event, by the way. But it brought together regulators, operators, and other key stakeholders to discuss topics which were relevant at that time. Fast forward to now, and we're excited to take that event to the next level with a full exhibition floor, a comprehensive conference program, and network opportunities that are professionally organized. But this is an event that's going to be delivered like only SBC can.
The better question would be, why not Brazil, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. You have the beaches, you have everything.
And the location of the event is just perfect.
Isadora, I'm going to come to you on this one because you are based in Brazil. For you, how big of a kind of a step forward is this for you personally, being in Brazil and having this SBC event on kind of on your doorstep, even though Brazil is massive?
Yes. Well, it's massive. It's impressive, actually. We don't see a lot of events as SBC does. So it will be great to have a SBC Summit here in Brazil to discuss all the possibilities of the future of the market. It's a very specific market. It's very different from every other market that we can think about, especially the American market and the European markets. Latam in general is different, but Brazil is much more different. We don't have the culture that of betting like Europe has, for instance, or Americans have, but we love football. We are passionate about football. We're passionate about sports. And we love to bet, actually. Like you see that everywhere, not only at online sports book markets, sport books. And you don't see that only in the internet. You see it everywhere. You see at arenas around Brazil where people play football, beach tennis, football, volleyball, basketball. People bet among themselves to see who is going to win or who is going to score the final point. So to have this here in Brazil, especially in this moment where is most likely that we're going to regulate the market very soon, hopefully this year, and now that the iGaming market as well is step by step, like baby steps, but step by step, maybe will be legalized soon as well. So it's great, especially in Rio. Rio is beautiful. It's a great city. Barra da Tijuca, the neighborhood where we're going to host the event, is simply mind-blowing. The scenery is just unbelievable. So we are going to combine everything in only one place. So it will be great.
Perfect. And you kind of led on to my next question, but for Cristian, what sparked SBC's interest in hosting this event in Brazil and specifically in Rio?
Well, this planning has been years in the making. It wasn't something that we just kind of did overnight. As I mentioned earlier, the 2022 event in Sao Paulo was the starting point, but we're specifically following our community's overwhelming interest in this Brazilian-focused SBC event. The team has had countless discussions with many of our clients, our partners, key stakeholders, and it was very clear that there was a need for an SBC organized event specifically for that market. We selected Rio for a variety of reasons. Safety and the well-being of our attendees was the number one priority. The location and venue are the perfect place to hold the event, just like Isadora mentioned. And the second reason is the industry's event calendar. Holding it in Rio during that month in March fits perfectly in the events calendar. And honestly, lastly, who doesn't enjoy a bit of sun, sand, and caipirinhas, right?
I know, I definitely do. And you actually touched on something there about SBC's event calendar. We've talked about SBC Summit Rio. It would be amiss of me not to mention an event that's happening before that. Lou, I'm going to come to you on this. SBC Summit Latin America. What can we expect from kind of this moving forward? Because what's the location? Not the location, sorry. What's the date again?
That's 31st of October until the 2nd of November. So Halloween, hello. Yeah, it's going to be fun. If people listening to this attended the previous two events, they'll know that. Out of LATAM, this is by far the most exciting event, especially because of all the networking opportunities and how well organized it is. It is personally my favorite event. I'm not going to lie, I had a great time, even though I was really working last year. But the venue, the opportunities to meet people, the Miami, the beaches, everything. But yeah, we can expect really cool things. Like, we have a very well thought agenda this year again. We have sports teams coming. We have the main operators from the region. We have a lot of European attendees. We'll even have some American attendees as well, Native Americans. There's going to be something for everyone. And obviously, we I think, double the floor expo space, the number of attendees, everything. The event is on track to be our best yet.
Perfect. And just one final question, just to wrap up the podcast. Cristian, this is for you. So we've talked about SBC Summit Rio, SBC Summit Latin America. I just want to know from you, kind of what are the unique differences or similarities in kind of hosting these two events? Because they're both kind of in that Latin American region, but as we all know, each region is different.
Yes, absolutely. Well, our SBC Summit Latin America event is for the entire South America, Caribbean, Central America. It's pretty much for all the countries, right? When we think about Rio, it's specifically for Brazil. Our Latin America event has a robust conference program that you can listen to and sit in on and listen to in 3 different languages: English, Spanish, and Portuguese, which makes it a nice offering for everyone from all the different countries to listen in, participate, and be able to gain more knowledge. Whereas Rio it's going to be very Brazilian focused. All the content, all the sessions, it's going to be more focused on that region. So that's what's going to separate those two events out. And yeah, we're looking forward to it. Like Lucía mentioned, our Latin America event has been growing tremendously fast. The show floor is almost completely sold out at this point. Should be a fantastic year 3.
And to quickly add something to what Chris said, Like I've attended a lot of LATAM events in the past few years, and honestly, the demand from the industry has been insane. Like people always ask, when are you gonna host an event in Latin America, specifically in South America? And well, here it is. We have Rio now. So that's another difference. And yeah, the Brazil in general, the market is gonna be huge. So it's gonna be exciting.
Definitely. I'm looking forward to both events. Probably not the humidity of Miami. I'm not looking forward to that.
Yeah, make sure to shave your head, James.
I'm definitely shaving my head. But no, both events are going to be fantastic, and I am truly looking forward to it. I'm not just saying that. It's an honest expression from me. But for now, Cristian, Lucía, Isadora, thank you for joining me today on iGaming Daily. For the listeners, again, I'm going to include links to the landing pages for SBC Summit Rio and SBC Summit Latin America in the description below. So if you want to find out more about both of them events, click on the link in the description. And apart from that, thank you and goodbye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of iGaming Daily, brought to you in conjunction with SBC Summit Latino America, being held at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Miami on the 31st of October to the 2nd of November. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News Network. Happy reading.